SnowTrax is sponsored by Ski-Doo Snowmobiles. Experience that Ski-Doo feeling. Yamaha revs your heart. And by FXR Racing. Maximum versatility for all conditions.
So when we first decided to purchase a remote property, I had to get in the wintertime. We wanted to be a 4-season recreational property. So initially started out as to buy basically a tool to get in here. A snowmobile was just a tool. It wasn't considered a sport or recreation. And not long until I realized that snowmobiling is a load of fun. With my background, motorsports, racing background, it quickly evolved into, much more fun than actually just a tool. So in the wintertime, it's challenging getting in here. I have to be aware of the lakes being frozen. There's a trail system, but primarily I use. I'm often breaking trail to get in here with my gear and equipment. It's narrow. I do not come in here with a chainsaw. It's just part of remote recreation. Again, there's lakes, there's trails, trees to contend with. It can be challenging getting here. You need the right machine to get in here. I ended up choosing a 600 Renegade Sport, which had a longer track than a conventional trail machine, which aided in flotation. I knew I was going to have to do some modifications to it. As it's still a trail machine, I needed to work on flotation and getting in here, as well as having the sport side of fun. So I increased the flotation on the Renegade by switching out my OEM skis to a DS2, a deep snow ski. And I changed out the track to a 16-inch, 1 inch wider than the OEM 15 Camoplast track with a larger lug as well. Upgraded to a Stage 4 Elka shock, the 2 in the front as well as the 2 in the skid, to keep up with my spirited, more aggressive trail riding. I require a lower gear ratio for deep snow riding and hauling a toboggan for utility. Got it down to about a 20-minute timeline where I actually switch out the gearing, pop the chain case cover off, switch out the gears. That's what originally caught my eye with the Expedition. It's got the high and low range as well as the performance. What really caught my interest in the Expedition Xtreme was it would satisfy my needs for utility machine with deep snow capabilities, gathering wood, yet have trail performance that would satisfy my need for speed. So a friend of mine, Vern, introduced me to the machine and thought it would be a great machine for my use, as he knows what I've done to the Renegade, and Vern gave me the sled for a couple of weeks to get used to it. It's an amazing machine, the fact that it's so versatile. I figured with the high and low gear and the 20-inch wide track with the 154, it's going to be a great workhorse. That didn't surprise me, but what shocked me was how well-mannered and what a great performance machine this was on a groomed trail, or even when the trails get rough and in need of grooming, the shock package just worked flawless for what's originally a workhorse. For a utility machine, you're always strapping, whether it's gas cans down or chainsaws, saws, etc. The Expedition Xtreme has almost unlimited room back there and options with the link system to strap accessories on. With a utility sled, often they put a fan-cooled motor in them. Often a utility sled is stopped at idle. Typically a liquid-cooled machine won't cool without a fan. And that's the great thing about the Expedition Xtreme with a radiator. You can truly use it as a utility machine, stop, idle, get your work done, hop back on, and carry on. Whereas with my Renegade, I have to shut it off. It'll overheat. I found with the Expedition, there was really no limitations. I felt much more confident heading out into areas which I would be a little nervous with a shorter, narrower track. Very confidence-inspiring off-trail machine in deep snow. After all the work's done around here, I like to get out and play. What's amazing is from a standstill, you grab a handful of throttle, the 154 20-inch track, the traction's unbelievable, and it just lifts the skis and they won't set down in the snow for about 60 or 70 feet. The power is unbelievable. The machine really surprised me of how well-mannered it was in fast corners. It held its line. I was expecting an understeer with the big track in the back. The handling characteristics, along with the match to the 850 E-Tech, is a great trail machine. You can keep up with your buddies on their MXZs or Renegades, no problem. It performs beyond my expectations compared to a machine that I had to modify to meet my expectations. I've always loved my Renegade, and I think I found my my next machine.
It's no secret that the crew around here at SnowTrax believes Polaris' Axis platform provides the best front-end ride and handling in the business. So when we were told that 2021 was going to be a big year for Polaris with lots of new, we got a little nervous. Sometimes it's better not to mess with something that works so as not to mess it up. But since the intro of the Rush, our confidence in Polaris has done nothing but improve year after year. It seems like a massive percentage of the decisions they make are the right ones. This realization calmed our nerves considerably. When the sheets were finally pulled off the 2021 lineup, it became abundantly clear. Lots of new was a huge understatement. So without further ado, let's take a look. First on the list of important new stuff from Polaris in 2021 is the introduction of the Patriot 650 engine package. Based off the 850, this engine benefits from all the same design characteristics that made the 850 so dang good, it's just in a smaller package. We think the 650 makes perfect sense and, like the 850 E-Tech did a few years ago, sets a new standard for 600 class performance. The bottom end of the engine is essentially the same as the 850, it's just had the bore and stroke altered to decrease displacement. In terms of how the engine is designed though, it's basically just the little brother of the 850. And this is exactly how it feels on the snow. It has the same ultra deep bottom end and slightly aggressive character we love so much about its larger counterpart. It's also a powerhouse, promising a horsepower increase of 10% over the old Liberty 600. That means if our math is correct, it could be making between 137 and 140 horsepower. That is impressive, and it's sure to make more than a few 850 buyers second guess whether or not they actually need an 850. But the most impressive numbers produced by this engine are in relation to economy. Polaris claims it gains a 20% increase in fuel economy over the 600 when run at a steady 45 miles an hour, and an almost unbelievable 50% increase at a steady 25 miles an hour. To put this into perspective, this engine will be more efficient than any other 600 class two-stroke, basically in the same realm as some four-strokes that make 1/3 less the horsepower. Before we go any further, I just want to point out that SnowTrax has been predicting that Polaris would replace their old Liberty 600 with a 650 for a number of seasons. So a new motor is big news, no question, but it may not be the biggest news from Polaris for next season. This is because for 2021, Polaris is unveiling an entirely new platform called the Matryx. It's got an aggressive, almost animalistic look that a number of our crews pointed out looks very similar to Polaris Off-Road's RS1. Interestingly enough, they were both designed by the same guy. The Matryx bodywork is smaller in every dimension than the Axis, yet manages to provide even better wind protection and therefore is actually warmer. Ergonomics are different, but not so much that a Polaris rider will feel out of place. The biggest change in terms of ergonomics is in the seat and gas tank area. The front section of the seat and gas tank are a full 5 inches narrower than on an axis-based sled. You may be asking yourself, like I was, just how big a deal can this 5 inches really be? And let me tell you, it's a big deal. This sled becomes so easy to move around on, it just feels incredibly light and flickable. A new headlight Polaris is calling the Nightblade has been designed with inspiration from the Aston Martin car company. It features 4 individual LED bulbs and reflectors on each side, 2 for high beam and 2 for low beam. Above the reflectors are a pattern of accent LEDs. A few other interesting features found on the Matryx are a storage bin behind the gauge that is said to be able to hold up to 5 pairs of goggles, a storage bin under the removable seat, and new left-hand switchgear that's illuminated and rubberized and controls that gauge. A new braking setup with a new master cylinder and lever and a new caliper are an improvement over Polaris's already stellar brakes, providing more feel and a much more comfortable reach to the lever.
SnowTrax is sponsored by Princess Auto. Make it work.
The last piece of cool new technology found on all the Matryx models are something the industry has never seen before: climate-controlled hot grips. Yes, you heard me right. Using your gauge, you can separately customize the high, medium, and low settings of your hot grips and thumb warmer to a specific temperature. When that setting is selected, the grip will heat up as fast as possible to that pre-selected temperature and stay there, not getting hotter or being allowed to cool. The system is so smart that if you're riding with a crosswind and one grip is getting colder than the other, the system will send more power to that cold grip to make sure it maintains the temperature. New hot grip controls were something that Polaris has desperately needed for a long time. But this new system isn't just new, it's revolutionary, and I can say from first-hand experience it works exactly as promised. Now that we understand what the Matryx platform is, we need to look at the different models it will cover. First, it's available in 3 different track lengths and 2 engine combinations: a 129, a 137, and a 146 Assault. All are available with either the 850 or 650 engine options. The 129 and 137 are available in 2 trim levels as well. The Assault is available only at that highest trim level called the VR1. The Matryx-based VR1 is Polaris's top-of-the-line package and is available during SnowCheck only. You can pick your colors, track, and windshield, but there are no other options. Standard equipment includes a full set of Walker Evans Velocity 2.0 shocks and an all-new 7-inch touchscreen display, which we'll talk about in a minute. The Matryx-based Assault will be available only as a VR1, but the shorter track lengths will be available in season in very limited supply in a slightly downscale package called the Indy XC Launch Edition. This sled is again built on the Matryx platform, but where the VR1 gets the fancy new gauge and velocity shocks, the Launch Edition gets standard Walker piggybacks and the familiar PID gauge. We found in our testing that unless pushed to the absolute extreme, both the VR1 and the Launch Edition models handle and ride pretty much the same on standard trails. Polaris is calling their new gauge package the 7S. It features a 7-inch full-color glove-friendly touchscreen display with auxiliary buttons on each side. It can also be controlled by the left-hand bar-mounted D-pad. Literally everything on this display can be customized, from the gauge styles and positions to the type of information you want and where you want it positioned on the screen. A list of what Polaris is calling widgets are available from the customization menu and include things like trip meters, engine temp, battery voltage, fuel level, all the things a typical trip meter would tell you, and a bunch of extras. A full GPS database is pre-installed and allows for a feature that's previously only been found on Polaris side-by-sides. It's called Group Ride. Group Ride allows all riders who have a 7S display to see each other on the GPS map screen without the need for cellular coverage. If you don't have the 7S display, you can still join a group ride if you have the Ride Command app loaded on your phone, but this does require cell coverage. At the end of the day, the number one question that all of you want answered about the Matryx platform in both VR1 and Launch Edition trim is simply, how does it work? And the answer is simple. It works amazing. It's comfortable ergonomically, and the front-end ride quality is every bit as good as that of the Axis platform. Where the Matryx really jumps ahead of the Axis, though, is handling. The Axis is the industry's best handling sled right now. Next season, though, the Matryx will take that title. It handles every bit as predictably as the Axis and is every bit as stable, but it corners flat. like really flat, almost never lifting its inside ski. Where the axis was precise, the Matryx takes precision to a whole nother level. Never have I been able to pick and change lines mid-corner as when I was on the Matryx VR1. I know this description gets overused time and time again, but it really does handle like it's on rails. 2021 is going to be a massively important year for Polaris. The Matryx is everything you didn't know you wanted but won't be able to live without once you've tried it, and the 650 is a true game changer for the 600 class. Where much of the competition is set on improving what they already have, Polaris is giving customers something new, but not just new, something infinitely better than anything they've had before.
While the later half of the 2020 season had some big news for the mountain market from Ski-Doo, when it comes to 2021, it's going to be a whole lot more about smaller changes to the trail market.
So for 2021, we have a new rear and front suspension, but also a new ski. So we call it the rMotion X, RAS X at the front, and the new Pilot X ski. This new suspension will be available on the MXZ X and XRS, but also the Renegade X and XRS, so a spring-only order for this year. For 2021, the new RAS X is actually a wider suspension, first of all, so a wider upper A-arm, wider lower A-arm as well, but also a new spindle for this new suspension. So the goal was to be wider to have better cornering performance. So the first thing the rider will feel with the new RAS X suspension, the flatness of the sled. We developed both the rear suspension and the front together to have a balanced sled, so it is flatter in the corner for better cornering performance and more precision. So the new Pilot X ski has been introduced with the new suspension because we wanted to make sure that it was at par with that suspension. What we wanted to improve was the precision of the ski in cornering, but also to have less darting. So it's a brand new ski that will deliver a new performance, especially in corner.
While the chassis stays the same, it's the geometry of the front suspension that's changed greatly, and what it's designed to do is keep the front inside ski from lifting in corners.
So the combination of the new Pilot X ski and RAS X front suspension is that the benefit was first to meet better cornering performance, but also better bumps absorption, but also stability into the bumps. So the combination of both will bring all those advantages and fun factor to the consumer. With the new RAS X suspension, but also with the new Pilot X ski, we're really looking at the corner and how the sled behave into the corner, so how we enter into the corner, so being flat, and when we go out of the apex to make sure that we can give some throttle and keep the sled very flat to keep a level of confidence to have the fun factor on trail. This is not a minor change, this is a dramatic improvement.
Out back, the rMotion X is aimed at making the ride of the rear suspension even better than the previous generations.
So the main change we did to the rMotion to bring in rMotion X, first it's the front arm, or what we call sometimes the torque arm, is longer by about 30 millimeters. So the goal was to have less transfer and to keep the sled more flat. The new rMotion X suspension also have what we call a weight transfer adjuster. So the riders will be able to adjust the position of the front arm to be either higher or lower to have more or less transfer. So for North America, most of the consumer will adjust it for less transfer, but in Midwest US or Scandinavia, they may prefer to have more transfer to the sled. So now it's possible to adjust it in your garage. So on the rMotion X, we also have the longest shock we ever used on a snowmobile. Okay, thanks to the geometry and these new shocks, we will have the greatest rising rate compared to the rMotion. So for the rMotion X, because we get rid of the 120 track length, we optimized the rear suspension for the 129 and 137 track length. So we have a brand new rear arm, and all of this together, we could save about 5 pounds of suspended weight out of that suspension.
Up on top of the sled is a new high-definition gauge package that has quite a few cool new features.
For 2021, we have a brand new gauge that is a high-definition digital gauge that comes with, we call a rotary switch to control the gauge. So the most important benefit of that new gauge is first, it is Bluetooth connection. You can connect your phone to have music and to take phone calls, and it can be connected with the communicator set up on your helmet. Another important feature for the gauge, so we have a phone placeholder right here, so you keep your phone warm, so it can work for all your ride all the day. You can display your phone on the right side of the gauge, so you can have access to some apps, but also to a new BRP and navigation apps. So the new gauge also comes with a rotary control, a bit like in some cars where you can control your gauge with a rotary. It's really user-friendly, so you can control the gauge. You also have new button right here, so you can take phone very quickly with your hand on the steering bar or change the volume when you listen to music, for instance. As we speak, we have 2020 models with the new rear and front suspension that are being delivered to your dealers. So you can contact your dealer and you may have a chance to demo this new suspension.
Now, on top of RAS X, rMotion X, and the all-new high-definition gauge package, there was also the Summit 850 Turbo from this season. And while we are typically used to Ski-Doo releasing all of their new products only for spring order the next year, 2020's been an interesting year. Well, actually 2020.5 as they've been referring to it. Now, one new area Ski-Doo is venturing into is the Sport lineup. Typically found in an older chassis, the Sport for 2021 is now full G4, but with a twist. A single 600cc fuel-injected 85 horsepower motor is the only option for power and comes in a Sport MXZ, Renegade, and a Sport Backcountry, opening up the entire entry-level possibilities to a broader range of users. There's more basic shocks and a reduced feature digital gauge, but besides that, you're getting a lot of bang for your buck, and the retail price is very enticing. Now, speaking of retail, the other end of the spectrum, the 850 Turbo, is finding its way into more sleds. No, not a trail sled, but now the full lineup of Summits, as well as the Freeride lineup with offerings in different track lengths for 2021 season. With extra power available at higher altitudes, will the Summit be the king of the mountain, and will other manufacturers have an answer? And as of right now, you're just gonna have to sit tight and see, because right now, there's a battle going on between Ski-Doo and Polaris like we've never seen in the industry. And the technology that they're putting into these sleds is like nothing we could have ever imagined.
SnowTrax has been sponsored by Polaris Snowmobiles, MBRP Performance Exhaust, race-inspired, trail-proven, and by Hercules Tire, ride on our strength.
If you like what you've just seen, click the subscribe button and comment below. And make sure you check out all of our great videos on SnowTrax TV's YouTube channel.